I'd like to do an analysis of the after effects of the No King's Day protests. Donald Trump released this grotesque AI of himself in an F-18 fighter bomber dropping literally shit upon all the protesters down below. On the 18th of October, we had the No Kings Protest Day. Over 7 million people nationwide participating. Chris Zilla described it as the liberal base of the United States being mad as hell, showing that they were mad as hell, and they were not going to take it anymore. So Donald Trump released this absolutely grotesque, vile video, totally shaming and demeaning the office of the presidency and his role as president of the United States, and demonstrating instead that he is a dictator, just like in Turkey, just like in Hungary, just like in North Korea, where he basically says and does what he wants and doesn't care what anybody else thinks. But this is propaganda that is aimed at his base. And so because of that, there are going to be certain details and features of this video, this AI creation, that are going to be very telling about the people who made it, what they believe in, and what they're trying to get their supporters to believe in or support as well. The most obvious factor, and something that is very important in the AI video, is the fact that Trump is flying in an F-18. And I'll get back to that later because as a symbol, it's also important to the AI video. But we first of all notice that after the F-18 takes off, we see Trump in the cockpit, and he is wearing this big, oversized, cartoon-like crown. But his face is visible. The breather mask on it is not covering his nose like it should. So it's very important to Trump that his face is recognizable in this video. Also, that if you look at it, the head is disproportionate to the body. It's larger than the body size. Also, the Trump in this picture is younger. This is either Trump before or during his first term in office, before the massive weight gain and the sagging flabby cheeks, etc. Also, being a fighter pilot, he has a fit body, athletic, to endure the G-forces. Also, the cockpit frame serves as a halo to outline his head. So we have the idea of Donald Trump, the suggestion of Donald Trump as a religious icon. There are numerous medieval paintings, illuminated manuscripts, and even small statues showing a medieval king anointed by God as ruler over his kingdom, surrounded by a halo, denoting the divine right of kings. Donald Trump is constantly played up as the savior of mankind, but he is the savior of white mankind, as we'll see later in the video. Donald Trump himself at a political rally said, "I was sent by God to save America." I want to talk here about the F-18 that was used in Trump's AI video. The first time I watched this, actually the second and third time I watched it, there was something about the F-18 that bothered me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. One of the advantages of looking at this and then thinking about it for a couple of days is I begin to realize things about it that weren't immediately apparent, or were immediately apparent, but I wasn't picking up on that. One of the advantages of a liberal arts education is the ability to look at a piece of media like this and to analyze it and to figure out what the people who made this intended, who the audience was for, what symbols they are using that they consider important. And I knew that the F-18 itself was important, but I didn't quite realize how. To better understand that, we need to go back to the beginning of the video. And so we notice right away at the beginning of the video, but of course the King Trump, the ha-ha, got you liberals, but we're looking at the very front of the plane. We start from the nose and pan backwards. And so the nose of the plane later becomes very important. Just a second. Yes, yes, yes. Religious icon there. Right there. That big pullback revealing... Hang on. By the way, this is one of the signs I was using at the No Kings protest that I was attending. But what is important here is the front of the plane, the very nose of the plane, is almost penile in comparison. On the wing and such. So this is what we see from the very beginning of the video. We look at the nose, we pan back to the King Trump, it takes off, but then after we see the religious icon picture, the camera pans down and we are left with this immense aircraft nose. So we're left with this immense aircraft nose basically pointing right at us. So the idea is, ha-ha, mine is bigger than yours, before the plane then begins its dive to attack the protesters. Now let's take a look again at this image here. Note the oversized cockpit. Let me go back to my slide. A moment here. All right, so we are back with this distorted image. The F-18 is distorted. The nose and cockpit section is actually larger than the rest of the plane, but the cockpit is oversized. But look at the proportionate sizes. Here, if we're looking at, let's get this visual fix, there's the cockpit, huge. Here is the nose of the plane, like so. So if we had, here's the nose of the airplane like so. So if we had the proportionate human being, the nose lines up, let me clarify it, the nose lines up perfectly with here. This is why I call the nose of the plane penile, because it is proportionate to the oversized pilot that's flying it. So I think what's important here is to look at this and the people that are behind it, the people that created it. The aircraft is deliberately distorted and the cockpit oversized to fit this meme that I was talking about. Now, I have to wonder at this point, was this deliberate or was this a side result, a side effect of efforts to make this look cool and impressive? If this is deliberate, then we have people cold-bloodedly manipulating the conservative base by using the symbols that they consider valuable, the virile male. But if they were not aware, fully aware of what they were doing, if this was accidental or incidental to what they were trying to accomplish, which was to look masculine and cool, then we are dealing with people who do not understand their own impulses, their own drives, their own emotional forces. And that makes them truly dangerous, not just to us, the American people, but it also makes it dangerous to them, themselves. Witness the continual feuding and squabbling and bickering in the conservative base among Trump supporters, among Trump's sycophants. The knives are always out. I need to digress for a minute here. Something that I feel is very, very important in this national conversation. While making this video, you're going to hear me say things like, this is idiotic, this is juvenile, this is primitive, and so forth. What I'm actually referring to are the generated products, these AI videos, and their purpose, their import, their intent, the audience that they're aimed at, and so forth. I differ from my liberal comrades in characterizing MAGA as being profoundly stupid and perhaps even insane. I don't. They are rational thinking people, but they are acting and thinking in irrational ways. They are doing stupid and idiotic things. But they themselves are people just like us. They have hopes, dreams, desires, fears, and so forth. They are capable of thinking in a rational manner, analyzing things and drawing conclusions. But they are doing so from a completely different perspective, perhaps a twisted and distorted one. But these are their own thoughts and feelings on the issue. And so I recognize the fact that they are doing stupid and irrational things, but they themselves are intelligent, reasoning people. The point I'm trying to make here is it's useless to blame the people, the MAGA people, the Trump sycophants, the conservative base that loves to be fed propaganda like this. It's useless to blame them. The blame lies squarely with the conservative philosophy, the conservative policies that don't work, never have, and heavily depend upon racism and hatred of women in order to even function. And as these AI videos, these Trump AI videos have to show, is that all conservatism can offer to us is fear, hatred, and violence. Nothing more. Back to the analysis of the vile Trump AI videos. And by the way, the idea that Donald Trump is flying a jet fighter plane full of crap, I think is a very good metaphor for his administration. Now, it's clear as the video progresses and the F-18 banks into a bombing run, a dive bombing run, that this is probably the city of Chicago. Now, what's very important in this video is that Trump is dive bombing the protesters. He is using air superiority, flying a Marine F-18 fighter plane flown by the U.S. Marines, the tough guys, to dive bomb the thousands of protesters that are down below. And it's very obvious as the video progresses that there is more crap being dumped on the protesters than this plane is able to carry, even with the huge wing tanks. And something else I wanted to point out is that the penile nature of this plane, the way it's portrayed and presented, we've got the cock of the nose cone, and we've got the balls, each ball of the wing tanks on the plane. So this is Trump giving it to the protesters who are down below. I neglected to mention in the previous slide that the color of the sludge, the crap, whatever, the effluvium that's being dumped on the protesters, a light brown, is important. And it's important in this scene here, where the protesters are being covered in this brown muck, effluvium shit, or whatever. If you pause the video and look at all the protesters, almost all of the protesters are white. And the targets in particular are young white males covered in this light brown guck. A derogatory term used for people of Hispanic descent is mud people. And so, to me, this is clearly a racist dog whistle that is being blown, because all the people participating in these anti-Trump protests, people who oppose Donald Trump, are viewed by MAGA as race traitors, because Donald Trump is the great white hope. This is why it's so important in the Trump videos, in the Trump propaganda, that people of color like Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are denigrated, demeaned, and humiliated. In the next scene in the video, where we see crap literally raining down on protesters from high above, from heaven, if you look at the screens that are behind the protesters, they're all different forms of news media that are presenting either advertisements or some other stories. None of them are focused on the No King's Day protest, i.e., they don't mean anything. The amount of effluvium that is raining down on the protesters is not possible for one plane load, even with the big testicle tanks that it contains. So this implies carpet bombing of the protesters by the American military, or by military forces acting under the command of Donald Trump, King Trump. This also, because it is raining down from above and it is hitting all the protesters, there's no avoiding it. This is pretty much like a finger of God coming down and smiting the wicked. But when I'm looking at this, this is a child playing with its feces. The greatest insult that Trump and his sycophants can come up with is shit. That's it. Crap. They don't criticize their policies. They don't criticize liberal worldview. They instead demean and denigrate the protesters as nothing more than white trash, as white crap. And so this hints at the possibility of Trump undergoing a sort of infantile regression. And I say this because nothing, absolutely nothing, is done without Trump's approval. That means Trump either suggested this theme, this retribution, or sycophants presented it to Donald Trump, and he said, "I love it, put it out, post it." So there's also, I talked about the fact that it's a high impact and that it has a blast radius, which is suggesting that there's no escape. The stuff coming down here is deadly. A famous silent comedian did a scene in which Harold Lloyd, he did a scene where he was standing under the spout of a water tank that was used to fill steam locomotives with water. And he wound up pulling the D-ring to dispense the water, and the water poured all over him and knocked him down. Years later, Harold Lloyd found out that the impact of the water had been so great, it had fractured 2 of his neck vertebrae, and he didn't know it. He didn't know it until he began experiencing a lot of neck pain later in his life. So the stuff that's raining down from here is deadly, but Trump doesn't care. The point has been made. So now we move to this video, and this was released by J.D. Vance on Blue Sky. Now, J.D. Vance is the Vice President of the United States. And one of the tasks, one of the roles of the Vice President is to actually uphold and protect the integrity of the office of President. The Vice President represents the President of the United States in important meetings, negotiations, conferences, etc. And so what he's doing is he's posting this blatantly tyrannical video where Donald Trump crowns himself. Too bad, evangelicals, because traditionally in a crowning of a king, it's done by a member of the clergy. For example, the chief archbishop of the Church of England crowning the next king or queen of England. So Trump is doing it himself. So too bad, Christofascists. You're not going to get to share power with Donald Trump in the end. But I also want to point out something else. Both in the fighter video, here just a second, both in this part of Trump's AI video, he's younger. Okay, this is not the elderly, doddering, bloated carcass of Donald Trump in the Donald Trump's second administration. This is the younger, more youthful Trump of the beginning of the first administration. In MAGA, in Aryan philosophy, in conservative philosophy, the leader, the Übermensch, must be forever youthful and virile. Virile, just like the exaggerated nose of the F-15. And then we come to the second part of J.D. Vance's repulsive AI video. We have the camera pans to the right, and we see several people kneeling, such as this is possibly Joe Biden. That's my personal suspicion. But this here is most definitely Kamala Harris. Why is it so important to see Kamala Harris kneeling and then, as the video proceeds, prostrating herself before King Trump? Well, how about the fact that Kamala Harris is female, that she is black, or at least non-white, liberal, and therefore, because she is also very capable and an excellent leader, she is what MAGA fears the most. But the fact that she is black and female singles her out for specific demeaning and humiliation. Another example, or a companion example, is the AI video of Obama talking to Trump in the Oval Office, whereupon FBI agents force Obama to his knees and handcuff him and arrest him. And also, Here, what's with everybody wearing these scarves? These scarves look tribal. Possibly it's the source that they raided from to help create this AI video. But I think that to the people who made this video, these scarves are all significant because they represent tribal primitivism. This could be another racist dog whistle, which they are just blowing with all their lungs to their supporters, to rile up their supporters. All right, what can we take away from these videos, from this analysis? The first and foremost thing, to me, is the people who created these videos are people we don't have to fear. These videos reveal such insecurities, such primal fears, that we don't have to worry about them destroying us, because they will destroy themselves from within, first of all, because the things that they believe in, the symbols that they consider important, are so juvenile, so ineffective, so insecure, and therefore fragile. Look at this response to No King's Day. 7 million people. And the response from Trump and his sycophants is this vile piece of garbage, which really doesn't say anything except to scream out loud, I am fragile, my feelings are badly hurt, I'm going to shit all over you. They resort to such vile propaganda out of fear of their critics. This is not from a position of strength. This is from a position of fear and loathing. So in the end, these AI videos, labeled by Mike Johnson as mere satire, offer no solutions, no critique, no useful insights at all. All these AI videos offer is fear, violence, and action for action's sake. The oppression of fascism and all that it stands for.